So I think this whole idea of, AI is going to place radiologists is just ridiculous.
Me
Roll it
too.
out as such. Um, but AI is going to help us. It already helps us and it helps our patients every day. And I think we're going to continue to see that. One of the most important things to consider is how AI is going to alter our workflows and really transform them into workflows that are more efficient and more effective and take away some of the redundant tasks that are really unnecessary for us to be performing and allow us to focus on the higher level tasks, which are really critical to the work that we do and which really rely on human judgment.
Welcome to Success in Chaos, a healthcare podcast where each episode is dedicated to success amidst the constant change and uncertainty of healthcare. I'm Angela Adams, the CEO at Inflow Health.
And I'm Candice Garcia, CEO of Tungsten QI Partners and Quality Director for the ECR Learning Network. So, our guest today is Dr. Shlomit Stein. She is the Professor of Radiology at the Zucker School of Medicine at Hofstra Northwell, the Director of AI for Enterprise Imaging at Northwell Health, and the Program Director for the Radiology Residency at Lenox Hill Hospital. He brings a powerful perspective on how healthcare organizations can deploy AI responsibly while maintaining clinical excellence and patient trust. Shlomi, welcome to Success in Chaos.
Good morning. Thank you. Great to be here.
It's so
Shlomi,
nice to have.
go ahead.
I think we're both excited about this episode because obviously we both live in the world of healthcare AI from so many different perspectives. But I'll jump in and start. And, your leadership journey spans so many different areas of the hospital: academic radiology, operational improvement, enterprise AI strategy. What experiences shape your approach to leadership today across so many different avenues of the healthcare system?
I got started in academic radiology, and there you learn very quickly that clinical excellence alone isn't enough. You have to understand systems, people, processes. And so I got into improving workflows and moved into radiology operations, which is really centered in improvement science. And at that point, I took a course to solidify the concepts and I leaned into the teachings of the IHI, but really, the greatest mentors that I found through the ACR and through my institution, um, they were really the ones who put me on the right path. I learned so much from folks who were already in the field, but then doing the work, getting together with teams, solving problems, collaboratively collecting data, measuring changes, moving from one PDSA cycle to the next. The iterative nature of that work and the reliance on the people, on the processes really taught me, again, it's all about the team and it's all about the people. Moving into running a residency program, again, taught me that leadership is fundamentally about developing people and building trust, you know, while holding on to very high standards. Now, in my most recent role in AI implementation, it showed me that the biggest barriers are not concrete or technical. Again, they're organizational. We have competing priorities. We may have unclear authority, fear of change. And again, what you need is trust and collaboration. So, what I have learned across all of those experiences is there's a common thread. The best outcomes come when you engage the people closest to the work. In AI, it's the clinical subject matter experts, it's the end users, it's those with institutional knowledge of operations, quality, risk. When you collect all the right elements into the work, you can then create a process for AI evaluation and monitoring that includes safeguarding patients from any risk and any harm. It opens the doors to improve patient care and it builds trust in the team, which really is the secret for eventual scalability of AI and progress.
I love that. The best outcomes come from engaging the people closest to the work. I think we've heard that as a theme in this podcast. So I love that you highlighted that as well. You mentioned mentors and I think the first time that I met you in person, you were presenting at the Stanford Quality Conference, and we were surrounded by probably some of your mentors in the field. And you presented, I think, a vision of how to govern AI in an organizational layer that I have not seen before in that level of maturity. And I would say that one of the biggest struggles that we face out there in health systems today is not that there's a lack of wanting the technology, it's that we have no governance and no decision making structure to actually bring it in. And some organizations take, let's say, 2 to 3 years to make a decision to bring something in. And in today's technology age, moving as quickly as it is, you could be bringing in a tech then 3 years later that's obsolete. You've been just working on that contract for 3 years. So I want to delve into what you presented there. The question is around, what does effective governance look like in real workflows, not just on paper? And how did you lead that at Northwell?
Yeah, great question. And I think the point that you make about, AI implementation, uh, it can certainly stall you have to figure out a process or manage how your governance is going to work. And I think ultimately AI governance is about patient safety. And AI implementation is not an IT initiative, it's a clinical initiative. And so if you look, right, the ACR has provided a very robust framework for AI governance. Arch AI, the new practice parameter that was put out, covers all of the necessary components for implementing AI safely and responsibly. But often the barrier to implementation is getting your stakeholders to align on AI. And one of the major questions that I have asked and that I have worked on with my colleagues is how do you get to decision making? And so
Mhm.
what I would offer is what we've done at our organization, where we've tried to shift our language and mindset from AI governance to more of a AI management and coordination. And I think governance can imply control top down. And what we really needed to drive decision making was trust and collaboration. And so it goes back to some of the things that I mentioned a couple minutes ago. You have to get a structure in place and the right people together and a process oriented around getting the people closest to the work to answer the problems that they are most apt to answer, most qualified to answer, and making sure you have all the right people engaged. So that means you have, end users, subject matter experts, you have people with institutional knowledge of operations, quality, and safety, you have data scientists, people who understand how to develop a research question. And certainly a large number of folks in radiology informatics. And we have this structured so that we have a core AI team and agile, fluid working groups. And that allows us to have consistency across our AI initiatives. And that's the structure that forms the backbone of all of the work that we do. And everything flows from there. And when you have a structure that and a process that supports that level of discourse and creates a flattened hierarchy where the right contributors are meeting together to ask those questions about how do we gain alignment, how do we do decision making. It does really grease the wheels and allow you to move forward. And you move really from, like I said, a top down governance structure to much more of a collaborative, trusting process where with data transparency and aligned expectations, you can really develop a functional conversation and establish a program in your environment.
I love that. So the core AI team, that's the decision-making body, and then it divides into these agile work groups that might not been have been part of that core decision-making team. Is that what I'm hearing you say? but they're part of the team kind of at the end workflow that are going to be taking the implementation forward?
So actually the core AI team and especially the AI clinical champion, their role is really to convene, right? And everyone is considered a decision maker. So you may have, we have a committee that kind of sits above and in layers above, and then we have department leadership and institutional leadership, but then we have, you know a lot of other contributors to those working groups that bring their expertise. The decision making is really a result of the process, right? There is a moment where a decision has to be there are many micro moments where decisions are sort of made incrementally. But I, as the AI champion, I see it as my role to really convene the people who can provide the information that we need in order to take the next steps forward. What problem are we trying to solve? What data do we need to collect? What type of pre-deployment evaluation are we going to run? What standards or metrics are good enough to then decide, we're going to deploy or not deploy, and try to make those decisions ahead of time. And then all the people necessary to actually run that trial, to then look at that data, do an analysis of it. Once you're sort of down that path and have that process established with all of the contributors in these agile working groups, the decisions flow from there.
I love that. Um, we have found that radiology is truly the tip of the spear when it comes to AI for healthcare, health systems. They have the most FDA approved algorithms in healthcare. And so everyone is watching radiology and everybody is watching how radiology. So it's both like a pro and a con for radiology because nobody else necessarily has done it well within the health system. So a lot of times they're the first in their organizations taking these large scale AI initiatives forward. What are your thoughts there? Have other segments of the healthcare system come to you guys and said, what have you learned? Like, teach us all of the things, like, help us understand how to operationalize AI in a way that has led to success as it has with your radiology AI structure.
Absolutely. And undoubtedly, radiology is the most digitalized specialty in medicine, right? So our entire workflow is already data driven: digital images, structured reports, quantitative measurements, and we have clear, measurable outputs, which makes us in a good position to rigorously evaluate the AI performance, and allows our space to really be a testing ground for AI. And we've developed these standards as a community and these processes around the metrics that we want to gather and the criteria that we want to follow in order to determine, the utility of deployment. And so we, I think, as a radiology community, have done a great job of sharing what we've learned in publications, at meetings, amongst each other. The ACR has convened us, RSNA has convened us. There's a ton of resources out there. At the institutional level, undoubtedly, like most places, imaging is leading in this space, and we get a ton of questions from other departments who are everybody's trying to deploy AI. We get a ton of questions from other departments, and I think we do have a lot of expertise at this point in that space, not only drawing from our own experiences, but really drawing from the larger community, which has been, I think, a real benefit.
Yeah, actually, that's where I got to meet you at the Stanford Radiology Improvement Summit, the ACR Quality and Safety conference. It is so wonderful to hear those conversations continuing to evolve and develop. And yeah, your talk on governance this last year, I think, was one of the best overviews and full pictures of how this actually gets implemented in a health system. But it leads me to think of that next question that we're all, I mean, I think we started talking about it maybe 8 years ago about how AI was going to replace radiologists and, we just don't need them anymore. And this is where we're going. And how are we as a community in radiology going to combat that? But as you have worked through this and now, leading these initiatives at your organization, how do you see technology and AI specifically integrating and supporting workflows as opposed to replacing them? What does that balance look like, and how does that play out in your own organization?
Great question. So I think this whole idea of, AI is going to place radiologists is just ridiculous.
Me
Um,
too. Me
call it
too.
out as such. Um, but AI is going to help us. It already helps us and it helps our patients every day. And I think we're going to continue to see that. One of the most important things to consider is how AI is going to alter our workflows and really transform them into workflows that are more efficient and more effective and take away some of the redundant tasks that are really unnecessary for us to be performing and allow us to focus on the higher level tasks, which are really critical to the work that we do and which really rely on human judgment. So I think look, what it's exciting to me is the collaboration between the human and the AI. I think what we have seen is in published studies and in clinical implementation that combination is what really drives the improvement that patients see downstream, whether it's triage and prioritization, whether it's enhanced detection rates. We know that combination um, does well for patients. And part of this is really learning more, I think, about that human AI interaction, understanding where AI does well, where AI doesn't do well. And we have learning community conference series at our institution where we try to reveal themes, around the performance of AI, which allows us to sort of understand better um, how we shouldn't over rely on AI and where we can, but where we shouldn't. And those discussions, those discourses, which, translate to system level improvements and improvements in our workflow and our integration also helps build transparency and trust. And it, fosters education back to our residents as well who are still in training. And those are the types of conversations that I think we need to have. How do we best integrate AI so that it's seamless in our workflow? How do we drive AI to create efficiency for us and a better care for our patients? What are the ways in which we can learn and understand to protect ourselves against automation bias? And, really be aware of that tension between efficiency and quality, right? Because what we're going to see is that AI is going to make us, it already does, but it's going to, with pixel to report coming and other breakthroughs, AI can make us very efficient. And what we need to figure out is how do we maintain quality in that environment? How do we maintain good judgment? How do we maintain our authority and our autonomy? How do we best care for patients in this new hybrid reality? And so I think those are the questions that we need to ask. We need to, go deep on those questions and really understand those interactions between radiologists and AI so that we can extract all of the benefits and make sure that at the same time, but we set aside any of the risks.
I love it. Attention, attention. All reporters, analysts, and CEOs of health systems saying that radiologists are going to be replaced by AI. Please listen to what Shlomi just said, because are asking the right questions. And it's a little irritating that the clickbait is still out there for like, oh, this is going to be replacing. If anybody would go and sit with a radiologist through a full day shift, I think they would and then go chat with Claude or Chat GPT for just a few hours. I think you would realize how absurd it is to be making those statements. And it's really like kind of taking us off topic. Like, I love you're pushing us where the topic needs to head. One thing, as you were bringing up all of those different great use cases, triage, enhanced detection, pixel to report. One other thing is, how are we training and educating the upcoming like radiologists, residents, all of those in a new world, really? I mean, this is a totally different world than when Candace and I and you were all back in school. So how are you guys using AI to really create a different education style? And like you said, we never even heard the term automation bias back when we were learning things. But that is a real thing today, and making sure that you're not falling in that trap. So tell me how you guys are using like AI or educating around AI to train the next generation.
So, as program director for the Lenox Hill Hospital Radiology Residency program, I take this question very seriously. And I think it's really important for us to be intentional about how we use AI in the clinical space and in our education space. My opinion, and I know others will disagree, but my opinion is that our current trainees are going to be using AI in their work. And when they leave us, they will have the responsibility to know how to judge AI for better or worse, and how to do those adjudications, and how to have confidence in their own interpretations, but also allow AI to help and to support their judgments. And so there's no better time to start doing that than when you're in training. And there is an alternative perspective, which is we should hold back the AI results from residents because it's going to be there'll be a de-skilling effect. They're not going to learn how to find pulmonary emboli or vessel occlusions or pneumothoraces. But I would argue that that's probably not right. I think because the residents are going to be faculty or in private practice somewhere and using AI, this is the time that we need to bring them, to that point of care to say, this is the AI result, this is what you've learned. What do you think about this particular case in this particular moment? And we take a lot of opportunities to share cases, again, the pearls and the pitfalls, where the algorithms do well, where they potentially fall short, where radiologists do better than the AI, and where the AI does better than radiologists. All of that nuanced information and that kind of pull and tug, we need to be in that discourse today with our trainees. If we don't, I think we put them at a real disservice. And I don't intend to do that. So at our institution, we have a uniform tech stack. Every workstation has the same technology, same PAC, same dictation program, same worklist orchestrator, and the same AI tools deployed. And consider the fact that in our environment, AI positive acute critical cases are bumped up to the top of the work list, and they're labeled AI critical. And there's active work list reprioritization. So we're not relying on kind of widget alerts or desktop, you know, a separate system. If you tried to remove the residents from that process, you'd be removing them from all of the acute reporting. You would have to sort of hide that from them. And I don't think that that would be of benefit to the residents or to our patients. We have a AI learning community conference series. It's resident led. We do this twice a year. They
Love
go through hundreds of cases that are provided by faculty and residents real time as they go through cases in clinical practice. That database of cases gets back to them, and what they do with the faculty mentors is they go through those cases, pick out themes, understand, why the false positives, why the false negatives. We have a category that's called true positive wow, which are the cases that, where AI has done really well. And we want to see those. We want to learn from those. And those themed conferences are really helpful, I think, as well as, when you roll out a new tool, you really should be comparing your pre-deployment validation statistics against the FDA cleared data. And we've developed model cards where you can see in black and white, what the expectations were from the FDA clearance documents and how the shadow mode trial worked at our institution. And that information is helpful because not every algorithm is going to work the same. We try to have that be setting specific depending on the prevalence of disease. You may see a very different performance, ED, inpatient, outpatient. And so these are the types of nuances that our trainees need to understand. It will help them take care of patients during their training, but certainly as they go out into the world.
I love that. I actually explained it to somebody recently. Like, if you go back decades, it would be the equivalent of the reverse, or what you said. Some people believe that you shouldn't be showing them the answer from AI. Would be like, do you remember when we got to use calculators and Texas Instruments in the middle of class, and we could get our little calculator out? Like, what if they just decided, nope, you can't use the calculator? Well, that's a tool that we can use in everyday life. So why would you not help us train on the instrument that's going to be beneficial to our entire life when we're away from class, away from school? And I was talking about this kind of sandwich generation that we have right now. And we have an amazing opportunity where some of them they learned before AI was really a thing. And then during their school or their residency or their fellowship, AI became kind of more integrated into their workflow. And that is the most amazing generation, right? Because they've got they'd learned without it. Now they learn with the efficiency gains that it has. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of that generation. For even Inflow Health, that's the people that we're trying to hire right now. Like, did they learn how to code before Claude Code? And they know how to do it, but then they know how to check their work and know when Claude Code is wrong. It's the same thing here with radiology. Like, we have a real opportunity with this generation that's kind of going through training, and it's absurd to me to think we would hold back on giving them all of the efficiency gains of AI and using that to learn and operate. So that's incredible.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, if AI shifts the role of radiologists from pure pattern recognition towards more clinical decision making and understanding, whether to accept or override an AI result, we need to get started, training the residents to do that.
We could talk about this all day long. We say this every podcast, but you have such a wealth of knowledge. Is there two or three resources or books that you could share with us that could get somebody starting to think a little bit more broadly, a little bit more deeply about these topics?
So I'm going to recommend a book that really kind of puts AI and AI implementation into the space of a principled negotiation, and that is Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury. Because I think that book has helped me kind of separate the people from the problems, focus on the interests at hand instead of the positions, and allows you to think about creating mutually beneficial solutions. And those are the types of things that are really important when you're trying to do change management, when you're trying to introduce a workflow change, certainly when you're trying to navigate institutional politics. When you're in this space, you're going to have conflicts that, again, are not technical. They're really about, trust, incentives, fear of disruption, ownership, and competing priorities. So if you treat your role in AI as an ongoing negotiation where you need to get to yes, that framework, which really encourages collaboration and problem solving, can help you. So that's my recommendation. I'm also going to mention another book which really has very little to do with the actual subject matter, but I just read Kafka on the Shore by Murakami, and for me, that was very helpful because created a mental space away from this kind of purely algorithmic thinking and decision making. And it is a weird and wild book, and it's not often that I read fiction, but that novel embraces a lot of ambiguity, and it introduces parallel realities, and it does actually mirror the type of uncertainty and complexity that people in AI space today, I think, have to navigate when you're managing people system change. And it may allow you, as it did for me, to sort of just slow down intellectually, and kind of I don't know. It reminded me that not everything meaningful can be quantified, or and so it was a good counterbalance, I think, to my daily work, which is really like metrics, workflow technology. And if you have the spare time, I encourage you to pick up that piece of fiction.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Shlomi.
Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for joining us on Success in Chaos. Please be sure to like, follow, and share today's episode on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And a special thank you to Inflow Health team for their production support.